Hello everyone, welcome back. It's Foot Forecast. In today's video, I'm going to be going through the Championship roundup for Game Week 39, and we've got some big games to discuss. And the first one I'm going to discuss is between Swansea and Coventry, and what a win for Cov in this game against the Swansea side, who are unbeaten in 10 at home going into this game. And they did this without Rodoni and Haji Wright. Both sides had chances in this first half, Swansea hitting the bar, but it was Cov who went 1-0 up from the penalty spot through Thomas Asante. Not a great pen, and I think victories should have saved it. It's poor from Kabongo giving it away after the challenge on Mason Clark. Cov then doubled their lead through Grimes, a great volley past Vigouroux against his former club. Grimes was a great servant for Swansea, playing for them for 10 years. Sakamoto then made it 3-0 to Cov just before half-time. Cov then made it 3-0 before half-time through Sakamoto. The goal definitely took a massive deflection. And the difference in the first half between the two sides was the finishing. Swansea had 3 really good opportunities and they took none of them. In the second half, both sides had chances, but neither side could score. And that resulted in a massive away win for Cov, because this looked like a real difficult fixture for Swansea. So frustrating, poor finishing, and a poor 15 minutes before half-time it cost them. You can get at this Cov side, I think, but you need to be clinical in front of goal, because they will take their chances in games, as we saw today. In terms of the table, Coventry are, of course, top of the Championship, but they are now 9 points clear, and it looks like they're going to go on and win the league, and if not that, they're going to go up automatically, because they've got another 11 points on Ipswich and Millwall, who are in 3rd and 4th. And Coventry are just profiting from sides dropping points. So from 2nd to 4th place in the Championship, all drop points in this game week. Looking at Swansea, they're currently in 14th place. They're just going to have a mid-table Championship finish. They're not going to get into the playoffs, but they're also going to be nowhere near the relegation zone. Then we're on to the next game, and it was another crucial game, this time between Ipswich and Millwall. As you would expect, Ipswich had majority of the ball in this game, but it was still a very even game between these two sides. Patterson made a top save in the first half of the game, but Patterson was eventually beaten. A great finish from Clark. I actually saw his post-match interview where he said he purposely shot near post because he played with Patterson a lot and he would expect the far post finish. So I thought that was clever from Jack Clark for sure. But after half-time, Millwall looked a lot better, and Josh Coburn equalised for Millwall. Great ball from Negley to find him. Millwall in the second half continued to be a threat, and they had some massive chances. They really should have actually won this game, but Walton made a top save, and they hit the bar right at the end. But it's still a good point for Millwall away at Ipswich. Great change from Alex Neil at half-time, switching to 2 up front, because before the change, Ipswich were on top. This is a disappointing result, I would say, for Ipswich. This is a good opportunity to go into 2nd place in the Championship, but they have dropped points, which means they will remain in 3rd place. And it's fair to say it was a disappointing second half from Ipswich. You would have expected to be better. So as I was saying, Ipswich remain 3rd place in the Championship, and they are 2 points behind Borough, but they do have a game in hand. For Millwall, they remain 4th place in the Championship, level on points with Ipswich. But what's been impressive about Millwall recently is that away form. Going into this game, they had won 4 games on the road, and then you add a point away at Portman Road, you'd say they've got a very good away record right now, and that could be the reason why Millwall could potentially go up automatically. Then we're on to the next game, which involved the sort of Championship automatic promotion race, and this was between Blackburn and Borough, which ended in a 0-0 draw. Another disappointing result, and it's the same story for Borough, dominating the game but unable to score. In the first half, Borough had some big chances, but they were poor in front of goal. Blackburn only created 1 chance in the first half, so it was dominated by Borough. Second half, it was a lot more even in terms of chances created, despite Borough having 75% of the ball. and neither side could score. If you're a Borough fan, it must feel like Groundhog Day, unable to break down the low block and then not clinical enough in front of goal. Toff did make some good saves in fairness to deny Borough, but this is happening too often. It happened against the likes of Leicester, Oxford, Charlton, Bristol City and Blackburn now. All these sides have taken points against Borough. Borough should be winning at least 3 of those games. And if they did this, they'd be cruising towards promotion from the Championship. But I just don't know if they have enough quality in that front line to Borough. For Blackburn, it's a good point in this game. They were definitely better in the second half compared to the first half. And that means they're in 19th place in the Championship and 4 points clear of Leicester. A couple of good recent results for Blackburn, who were starting to struggle in the Championship. In terms of Borough, as I've already said, they are second place in the Championship, but the recent form is concerning, especially against sides that sort of sit in a low block. And if Ipswich win their game in hand, they would then go ahead of Borough. Then we're on to the next game, and I'm talking about another game which involved a side down near the bottom, but this time it was a thumping win for QPR over Portsmouth in this game, and I didn't see this sort of result coming at all. And the difference in this game was how much more clinical QPR were, and it was an early goal from Smith who opened the scoring for QPR, a deflected finish past Schmid in goal. The next goal was an outstanding finish from Colley to make it 2-0 for QPR. Smith then made it 3-0 to QPR on the counter, pretty much meant the game was over before half-time. It was a good ball from Harvey Vale to find him, but it was too easy for QPR to cut through Portsmouth. Portsmouth then did make it 3-1 before half-time to give themselves some hope, and it was an excellent finish from John Swift. Portsmouth continued to have chances before half-time, but they could only score 1 goal. Going into the second half, Portsmouth actually continued to have some chances, but the difference was that QPR was so much more efficient in front of goal, and this resulted in them scoring a 4th goal, a great finish from Colley once again. QPR then made it 5-1 through Richard Kone from the penalty spot. It's a soft pen, but this won't bother QPR. And after this, Richard Kone immediately made it 6-1 to QPR. It's a great finish. The finishing from QPR was so clinical. They only had 10 shots at goal in this game. This meant that QPR had won 2 games in a row now, and they're starting to turn their form around after some poor results recently, where before this they'd played 4 games, conceded 12 and scored none, and lost all 4 of those games. In terms of Portsmouth, this is a really concerning result. They weren't as bad as maybe the scoreline suggests. It maybe felt like a 4-2 game to QPR, even like a 3-2 game. But it's still concerning because their form recently is poor, and they're continuing to have problems in front of goal, Portsmouth, and it continues to cost them in games. In this game, it may have not cost them though, because they probably would have just lost the game 6-4 or something like 6-3. But now they're only a point above the relegation zone, and this is really concerning because I thought Portsmouth looked the best out of some of these sides down near the bottom, but the results and the performances are definitely getting worse week by week. And if this doesn't turn around soon, they will be in the relegation zone. They do have a game in hand, but their game in hand is against Ipswich, so it's unlikely they're going to get anything from that game. In terms of QPR are now in 12th place in the Championship. It's going to be a mid-table finish for QPR this season. So then let's go to the next game, which I'm going to cover, which was between Bristol City and West Brom. And it was a massive win for Albion in this game, and they dominated Bristol City. And it was West Brom who went 1-0 up early in this game through Campbell from a corner. Good ball in from Stiles. In the second half, West Brom created a lot of chances, but they were unable to make it 2. Set pieces continued to cause Bristol City problems in this game. Bristol City did have the odd chance, but overall the Baggies definitely deserved to win in this game. That's now the 3rd win for West Brom in a row. And what I've said about Albion is if they get into form, they will stay up because they've got more quality than sides around them like Oxford and Blackburn, and we're starting to see that quality on show, which now makes me think West Brom should be fine because they're now 4 points above the relegation zone. They're heading in the right direction, and they've also got Wednesday still to play on the last day, which you'd expect would be 3 points. In terms of Bristol City, they're 16th place in the Championship. They're not going to be dragged into a relegation battle. They're definitely not getting into the playoffs, so it's going to be a mid-table finish for Bristol City, but the recent form is concerning. They've only won 1 game in their last 9. So then we're on to the next game, which is between Hull and Wednesday. As usual, when you play Wednesday, it's a must-win game, but especially for Hull, who've only won 1 game in their last 4. That's not good enough if you want to finish in the playoffs or go up automatically. But it was Wednesday, actually, who went 1-0 up in this game through Jamal Lowe from a scrappy set piece. But a minute later, from kick-off, Hull equalised through Matt Crooks. Great ball in from Joseph to find him. Hull then made it 2-1 just before half-time from a set-piece. A good ball in, but it is an own goal. So frustrating for Wednesday, who probably felt like they did enough to get into half-time. And it wasn't the best half from Hull, who conceded some chances, but they still had the lead going into half-time, so that's really all that matters. And they did double their lead through Carl Joseph. Good cutback from McBurney after half-time to find him. Hull then had some chances to make it 4-1, but Charles made some good saves, and a potential goal was disallowed for offside. In terms of the table, it's a huge win for Hull, who have pushed themselves back into automatic contention, because all the sides above them, apart from Coventry, dropped points, which means they're now only 5 points behind Borough in second place. In terms of Wednesday, we already know what Wednesday are like right now. It doesn't matter. It's just about surviving as a club, as I'll say every week with Wednesday. The one thing I would like to say about Wednesday is I thought their travelling support was absolutely brilliant in this game, as it's been all season, which is massive credit considering the situation that Wednesday are in. Then we're on to the next game, which was between Sheffield United and Wrexham. This is a big 3 points on the road for Wrexham in this game, and in the first half, Sheffield United were the much better side. Bamford had a massive chance after a great ball by Burrows to find him, and Wrexham did have the odd chance in this game, but Sheffield United should have gone 1-0 up, but they were unable to put the ball in the back of the net. In the second half, it continued very similar. Sheffield United started better, and eventually they did score through Brooks, a deserved goal to say the very least, but Wrexham did find the equaliser through Windass, a good ball from Sam Smith to find him. Sam Smith then completed the comeback for Wrexham, a good header and ball from Kabore to find him. Hugely disappointing result for Sheffield United in this one, who dominated in terms of chance creation and possession, but they just didn't take their chances that they had, and you've got to do this in the Championship because a side like Wrexham will punish you because of this. This result continues a bad run of form for Sheffield United. They're now 17th place in the Championship, and they've only picked up 1 win in their last 5. It's fair to say there is absolutely no chance of playoffs, but once again, they're not going to get dragged into a relegation battle. Looking at Wrexham remain in 7th place in the Championship, just outside of playoffs on goal difference, and the reason why they're in 7th place is because Southampton won against Oxford, which is the next game I'm going to cover. And how Saints won this game was they won it really early through 2 quick goals. The first goal coming from Josh Lauren, good ball in from Fellows to find him. The second goal was an outrageous strike from outside the box from Charles. Saints continued to dominate in the first half, with Oxford only having a few chances. In the second half, Oxford actually had a chance to get themselves back into the game, and it was a massive one, but Lancashire missed the 1-on-1, putting it wide. Saints also had chances in the second half, but the game did end in a 2-0 win, a comfortable win for Saints, and they kept the clean sheet, which is always great. And the run of form that Saints are in right now is absolutely outstanding, and this means that they are still 6th place in the Championship, but they haven't lost since the 18th of January, and in this sort of run of form, they've only dropped points in 3 games. It's absolutely brilliant. And right now, they're a serious playoff contender and potentially an automatic contender still, with only being 8 points behind Borough and the sides above them dropping a lot of points. But as long as they get into playoffs, they're going to be a real threat, because the form they're going to be going into the playoffs with is going to be very good if it continues like this. And that Saints squad has a lot of quality, and we're starting to see that. So then we're on to the next game, which was between Derby and Birmingham. A good win for Derby in this game, which keeps their playoff hopes alive. The first half, Derby were completely dominant, with Blues having 0 shots, and they did eventually go 1-0 up in this game through Brewster, a deserved goal. It's poor keeping from Beadle in goal. He has to save that. That's such a poor judgment, thinking the ball is going wide, and he's just continuing not to be a reliable keeper for Birmingham. In the second half, it wasn't much better for Blues, creating only 3 chances and none on target. And Derby really should have won by more goals. They absolutely dominated this game. Birmingham was so open and Derby had so many chances in both halves. But it's still a very good win for Derby, completely dominant. In terms of Blues, they were shocking in this game, and there's a lot of pressure on Chris Davies. I think what's going to happen, he's going to be sacked at the end of the season like he should, because he's not been good enough this season. This Blues squad should be a lot closer to playoffs, if not in playoffs. And he's still not sorted them out away from home. Blues are shocking away. It's that simple. In terms of the table, well, Birmingham are now 10 points away from Southampton 6th. They've got no chance. Derby do have a chance. They're 3 points away from Saints. But I think their best shot is potentially finishing ahead of Hull, who are 6 points clear. I think Hull are likely to drop quite a few points for the rest of the season. They haven't been great recently, despite winning in their last game. So then we're on to the next game, which is between Charlton and Norwich. Good win on the road for Norwich in this game against a side that's been difficult to beat recently. And Norwich did exactly what you need to do early in this sort of game away at Charlton. Score the early goal, which they did through Mattison. It was a good finish, because it can be a long day trying to break down Charlton. Both sides had chances before half-time, but neither side could take them. In the second half, Charlton definitely had the better chances from set pieces and from open play, getting crosses into the box, but they were unable to score, and Norwich did hold on for all 3 points in this game. For Norwich, it's a big 3 points. They were definitely tested in this game. It wasn't their best performance I've seen from Norwich recently, and there's still a little bit of hope for playoffs. They're 9 points behind Southampton, and the reason why I say Norwich have a bit of a chance is because they actually look like one of the better sides around this sort of area of the table. Sides like Birmingham and Watford, who around them, aren't good enough to put on like sort of a 6-game winning streak. Norwich could potentially do it, but their problem is going to be the injury concerns. So I can't see them getting into playoffs, and I don't think Norwich fans think they will either, but they're going to be a dangerous side next season. In terms of Charlton, I think they're fine. Charlton are 9 points clear of Leicester, and they're playing well right now, so they should be fine in terms of safety. One more win, I think, confirms it for Charlton. Then we're on to the next game, which is between Watford and Leicester. This was a game which Leicester really should have won, because they had some massive chances. The first one from a penalty spot, but it was a really good save from Salvik. But in saying this, Dak has still got to score from the penalty spots. It's really that simple. It's so important you take those chances, especially when you're in the relegation zone. For me, it is a pen. It's great work from Fatawu to win it. And the Watford defender, Banquo, just gets absolutely rinsed. Watford were poor in this first half, only having 1 shot, and it wasn't much better in the second half. Irakunda did have a decent chance in the second half for Watford, and they did have a dangerous corner, but apart from that, Leicester had majority of the chances. Daka had another huge one, but he missed a header after a good ball in from Decordova-Reid, and right at the end, Nelson had a chance, but it was directed right at Salvik in goal. Frustration for both sides. For Leicester, they deserved 3 points. For Watford, they were nowhere near good enough in this game. In terms of the table, Leicester are still in the relegation zone, but they have gained a place on Oxford. For me, Leicester are the same as West Brom. If they start picking up a couple of good results and performances in a row, they'll be fine, because they've got more quality than the sides around them. And that was a good performance. What they need to do next is back it up with another performance, and this time a win. In terms of Watford, I don't think Watford have any chance of playoffs because they're not playing well enough. A couple of poor performances recently has really meant that there is no chance after the loss away at Stoke in this result against Leicester. If they won both of those games, which was realistic, then they would only be 2 points behind Southampton. Then I would say they were definitely in a good chance. Then we're on to the final game, and it was the game on the Friday night between Preston and Stoke. The reason why I did this last is because both of these sides are going to be fine in terms of surviving, and neither side is pushing playoffs. But this was a big win for Preston, who ended a win the streak of 7 games. But the game didn't start well for Preston, with Sorba Thomas scoring a great goal. It was a good ball in to find him. Preston, however, equalised on the counter-attack through Alfie Devine. Stoke will be disappointed because the goal comes from their own long throw, and Simpkin could have done a lot better in goal. Whiteman for Preston was then lucky not to be sent off of a studs up challenge, and it was only given as a yellow. I think if there was VAR in the Championship, which I'm happy there isn't, that would have been a red card, because I think it was a red card worthy challenge. Preston then had some chances before half time, but they were unable to make it 2-1. Eventually, after half-time, Osmajic did make it 2-1 to Preston. Good header and ball in from Dobbin to find him. Alfie Devine then doubled the lead for Preston. A good ball from Osmajic to find him. A much better performance from Preston in this game, creating a lot of chances, which they've struggled to do recently. Stoke were absolutely poor in this game. They need to create more, and they were too open defensively. In terms of the table, as I was saying, both of these sides are going to finish somewhere sort of lower mid-table in the Championship. Preston are 13th, Stoke are 15th. Neither side is going down, neither side is finishing in the playoffs. It's going to be a boring end for both of these seasons. Let me know your thoughts on this Championship roundup. What was the best game in your opinion? What was the thing that you took away from it? And if you enjoyed this video, great, subscribe to the channel as well as liking the video.